The quarterback, the leader, the driver, and the engine of an NFL team.
Lately, the market has exploded. Teams are throwing money at guys who are just decent, all because they're terrified of being without a quarterback.
They'll overpay anyone who can run a huddle just to say the position is locked up for a few years.
But today, we're not talking about the teams that have it all figured out.
Today, we want to talk about the teams that are lost, that are desolate when it comes to their QB situation.
So let's get into it. The top 5 worst quarterback situations in the NFL, and, if possible, how to fix them.
2 inches short, maybe less. Story of my life. It's been a while since he's seen a hole that big.
If you say he's a bust and you end up right, it's not because you're some genius. It's because you got lucky.
How I feel, man? Tell me how I feel, El Freaky.
We pray that these perk 30s would nourish us and allow us to throw the ball.
They got to go get this bread.
If you suck, you might as well suck with purpose. And so... Yeah, so I'm really excited about this because there are a lot of bad quarterback situations within the NFL.
Narrowing this down to 5.
Ranking this was really difficult.
I don't know how we want to do this. I think we work our way from 5 on down. We'll just alternate, Adam. And if one of us says a team that's on the other person's list, then we can mention that, but we'll keep it a secret where at until we arrive.
I'm with you there. And just to be clear, we have not discussed who are in our top 5, so I have no idea who's on Jonathan's list.
I'm going into
really
this blind.
Excited to kind of see.
I'm a little bit concerned that, we could wildly differ.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Before we get into that, let's provide some context into this discussion. So, what were some things that you were looking at when you were making this list?
What I'm looking at right now is, because there's teams that are drastically different from each other that are on this list in terms of their situation. So bad can mean a lot of different things. I'm looking at guys who have either been overpaid and the situation is looking terrible, or teams that are also just utterly desolate at the position and seemingly have no future. And I'm combining that with general cap space going forward and their draft capital heading into this next draft to see if there's any immediate repair or quick fix situations. So what are you looking at?
Yeah, so in order to do this, I was trying to think okay, what is a bad quarterback situation? And I created 5 different categories for the QB situations that I would consider bad to just a question mark. So the first category is nothing but the future. This includes teams like the Saints, the Raiders, the Jets, who it's all they have is a question mark, right? We don't know. They don't have anyone right now. It's all about the draft. Next is good ceiling, terrible floor. I think the poster child for this is probably the Dolphins, right? Where it's their ceiling is they are good enough in order to create an illusion that gets them a second contract in a really crowded market, but when they suck real hard. The next category, you have the guy, but you don't know if he's the guy. So this includes, I think the best team I could bring up for this category is the Titans. They have Cam Ward, but the infrastructure around them is so bad that you don't really know if he's the guy.
You have a guy.
You have a guy, but you don't know if he's the guy. Another teams in this is the Falcons, the Giants, the Panthers. The second to last category, what the hell is even that? This includes the Colts and the Vikings, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yes.
And then the final category is the Browns. The team in this category is the Browns. So just to clarify, the 5 categories, nothing but the future, good ceiling, terrible floor. You have a guy, but you don't know if he's the guy, and what the hell is even that, and the Browns. Those are the 5 categories. And so my job was to look at those categories and figure out, which is the worst, and which is the worst category to be in, and then what degree of in that category are you?
Based distinctly off of those categories, I should mention, and this will become important once I reveal something, I'm somewhat grading on a curve of vibes, and my opinion
Me too.
on this team's fan base and what they want, because I will go ahead and reveal this for you right now, Adam, and then, excuse me, clear my throat. I will go ahead and reveal this for you right now, Adam, and then you can give me your fifth worst.
Okay.
I do not have the Browns on my list.
Okay, that's crazy. But I'll let you know when they come up on mine. At number 5, I have the Vikings at my number 5 team.
Adam, I have the Vikings at number 5 as well.
Oh, you do? Okay, so there are a couple of points to make here. The first point, JJ McCarthy is the woat, right? Let's just look at the stats, some important numbers to discuss. This season, he has a 56% completion percentage. He has just over 1,000 yards. He's already taken 24 sacks, but specifically under pressure is what tells the story. He completes just 42% of his passes when pressured. He has 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's obviously really bad. In the league that we are today, with the types of pass rushes and defenses that we see, it is vital that your quarterback can play well under pressure. He cannot. Then the other thing, or the other situation in which quarterbacks have to play well, is the high leverage plays, including third down, in which he also has a 42% completion percentage on third downs.
God.
He only has 1 touchdown on third downs. He has 4 interceptions on third downs. He has a 50% conversion rate on third downs. All terrible. The one bright spot is the red zone. But
and I'm
it's
chalking that up to Kevin O'Connell.
No, listen. It's not a bright spot for him. It's not a bright spot for an NFL quarterback. It's a bright spot for him. He has a 52% completion rate in the red zone. And 0 interceptions. So that's good. Here's the kicker. His total EPA, negative 63.97. His EPA per play, negative 0.272, which means on average, when JJ McCarthy holds the ball, his team loses
His team loses a quarter of a point every time he touches the ball.
Do you know what that means, Jonathan?
That's utterly ridiculous.
On average, every drive where JJ McCarthy is the quarterback, they lose a point. Absolutely insane.
I don't even know. You want to know what I have in my notes?
What?
9 needs to go.
True.
That's all I put down when it comes to that matter. But in my analysis long-term of that, outside of the analytics of his play, the window of Jay Jettas, that being Justin Jefferson, and a competent defense only gets narrower every season going forward. And the reason why I have them at number 5 is that I don't see what the future is of how quickly he can develop, even if that's possible, before you're basically at the end of the window of what this roster looks like.
Well, the biggest thing here is that their defensive coordinator, a man by the name of Brian Flores, creates a situation with his scheme where you don't have to have, pay a lot of money for a defense to play really, really well.
And you know
Brian
what guys
Flores
like that get? Head coaching jobs.
Exactly. And so as soon as he leaves, it creates a situation where there's going to be a lot of pressure on that offense. The other issue here, we talked about this in the main pod episode. JJ McCarthy's best game of the season by far was his recent victory over the Commanders. But what happened in this game is that McCarthy threw the ball 23 times.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Michigan-style offense. He threw the ball 23 times and had 3 touchdowns. The problem is, that's not how Kevin O'Connell runs the offense. That is not his style. That
it
never
also
will be his style.
Doesn't matter how good Justin Jefferson is in a press conference, because he is a really good teammate in press conferences. The best wide receiver in the NFL doesn't want to catch one ball.
Right. It boils down to the fact that not only is he bad, but the times when he was good was when Kevin O'Connell was completely abandoning a lot of what his great offenses do. The other thing, too, is that O'Connell has a history of just having bad run games. Like, if there's a weakness in his offensive play calling, it's the fact that generally his teams aren't that good at running the ball. And so it's like, if you have a quarterback who is dependent up throughout his whole entire career on a good defense and a good run game, this is kind of a situation where quickly it could spiral out of control. The other thing that puts them at number 5 is the fact that they gave up Darnold and Jones.
Yeah.
And like, I know that this is about the future, but that is just like a stain on the Vikings record when it comes to their quarterback situation.
The other
The
thing that
reason-
knocks them down a peg just in the short term is the fact that they aren't bad enough to have exceedingly fantastic draft capital to try and get complete blue chip guys going forward. So all of these factors together, they're not like bottom 3, but we did line up here.
And the reason why I have them high on this list is because I do believe in Kevin O'Connell. And, you know, I mentioned all those things about X's and O's, why they're not really compatible. I think O'Connell can adapt. And I think that there is a world in which he can save this quarterback. We also have to keep in mind that JJ McCarthy is the youngest starting quarterback within the NFL right now. And so when I look
100%.
at the whole situation, those things put them ahead of the other teams on my list, but it's still bad. And, you know, how do you fix this situation? It really is as simple as Kevin O'Connell needs to just like work his magic. Like, he needs to make the ritualistic sacrifices that revive Sam Darnold's career and make it work.
Yeah. We need to put a circle of Vikings fans around JJ McCarthy just ominously doing the skull chant. Trying to exercise whatever demons they can. But since we lined up at number 5, I guess I'll jump right to my number 4.
Okay.
So my 4th worst situation in the league, the New Orleans Saints. I am ranking this on a curve because of the relatively minimal investment that they have in Tyler Shaw. And I'm giving them leniency due to the general nature of a rebuild since they are in one. Realistically, you could call this bottom 3, but since they are in the middle of a committed rebuild, the expectations are minimal. And so I don't think it's fair to just say, oh, it's the worst quarterback situation. Plus, they're likely going to have a top 5 pick, assuming they don't mess up and win one more game, in which case they could drop to like near the bottom of the top 10. I think that they actually have a lot of flexibility. They're getting a lot of money off of their books right now. They can go into next season with a Tyler Shaw and, you know, maybe Shaw a few teams along the way, but still
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Still have good draft stock. This could easily be a situation in which, because they're still in cap space hell and they have one more season of that, really, with their pick that they get, they trade back, or they're part of a package for another team moving up, and then they're just reloading for a season where they can see if Tyler Shaw's the guy. He's probably not. If he is, great. If he's not, then you have great draft capital for 2027. So it's bad, don't get me wrong. I'm more so stating my case as to why it's not worse than number 4.
Yeah, so, So the thing is, and this is something that I should have said before, for me, when I'm looking at these quarterback situations, I really heavily looked at the way that teams can get out of it. And for me, the Saints aren't actually on my list. In fact, the 3 teams that are in my nothing but the future category, Saints, Raiders, and Jets, aren't on my list simply because I think all 3 of those teams, they have the future. And like, that benefit of the doubt is better than the
100%.
clear negatives that we've seen.
And I really respect that. And
that's
why I said I graded this really heavily. The reason I have them on my list is because I agree with your nothing but the future, but I think the Saints have the bleakest outlook just because of how bad the situation was compared to the Jets and the Raiders.
Sure. The biggest thing I'll say is that, because like, I'm not totally out on Shaw. It's one of the Saints are in this weird situation where it's like Shaw is playing for his spot. What I mean by that is, in a weird turn of events in which the Saints win a few games and get out of a position to draft a quarterback, in my mind, that just tells them that they have a guy who they can at least have for another year
Yeah.
before they invest and kind of reset right when that cap space situation mends itself over time. Basically what I'm saying is they're like, weirdly enough, even though it's a bad QB room, it might be the worst quarterback room in the league. The way like, if Shuck wins a couple games and gets them to a point where they don't have the draft pick to draft a future, like their future at their quarterback, that would then be enough for them to say, well, maybe we try Shuck for another year.
Well, my guess is that regardless of how the rest of the season goes, they're already planning on that. Like, let's not forget, he was a second round pick. Like, it wasn't blue chip draft capital. It wasn't some top 5, top 10 QB pick. But I think a lot of people, not for us, obviously, Shuck's been on our radar for quite some time. But a lot of people are pretending that he was like a 5th round guy and he just ended up starting. It's like, no, clearly the Saints saw something in him generally.
Yeah.
Now, is the Saints seeing something in you necessarily a good thing? In times past, maybe not, but a broken clock is right twice a day.
Hey, man, they were right about Drew Brees.
That was 25 years ago, Adam.
That's a really good point. Are we Shucksters? Is that the name?
We are.
For Tyler Shuck fans?
Are
we Shucksters?
We're Shucksters. I'm officially a Shuckster. In fact, I feel bad about having them at number 4. It's really more so the situation around the QB that kind of infects the QB room. So that being said, Adam, give me your 4th worst.
Yeah, so speaking with all of that in mind, my number 4 is the Colts. And you can see, my what the hell is even that category is the Colts and the Vikings. And I felt like I needed to include both those teams. There are a few notes here. The first one is Daniel Jones is still Daniel Jones, right? When we look at how the Colts have played, obviously they came out with that dominant start. And one of the things that I kept talking about was that Daniel Jones is playing how Daniel Jones played when the Giants made it to the playoffs because they had a decent offensive line and he wasn't getting pressured a lot. Daniel Jones is the type of quarterback that as soon as he gets pressured, he makes everything worse and makes all the bad choices, right? And we can see that in their losses. Against the Jaguars, he didn't play particularly well most recently. Obviously, he didn't have a lot of chance to because of the injury, which we'll get to. Against the Texans, he really struggled against pressure, and he was pressured 35% of the time. Against the Chiefs, he was pressured on 39% of his dropbacks and did not play well in that scenario. Against the Steelers, he basically lost them the game in a world where their offense kind of played better than the Steelers offense, but it was just the turnovers and the high leverage plays that were generally caused by Daniel Jones. All that being said, this was not a situation where Daniel Jones elevated the Colts. It was a situation where people were numb to the idea that the Colts unironically have a really, really solid foundation for an offense, and you put a quarterback that can play well when protected with, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and he can play really well. The problem is that he's still Daniel Jones. And this further gets a little bit complicated whenever you factor the fact that put into the fact that he just tore his ACL. No, he tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
Which really puts a big question mark into his future contract.
Well, not only that, but even let's take the contract out of that. Just purely, I don't care how far modern technology is coming. He's at minimum not coming back until early mid 2026.
Yeah. So like, that's the first thing, right? Like where obviously his recovery is a big thing. The question is just like, the Saints are basically coming at it blind. You have situations where people tear their Achilles and it doesn't completely hinder their quarterback play, like Aaron Rodgers comes to mind. But then you also have situations like Kirk Cousins, where you tear your Achilles and all of a sudden you're not that good, especially when, unironically, Daniel Jones's mobility adds a lot to his game.
Yes.
Like, how mobile is he going to be after the rehabilitation process of his Achilles? And the reason why this becomes really, really bad is because they easily could fall in the situation where they overpay for Daniel Jones. They're absolutely screwed when it comes to their cap space, and he's just not producing at a good level. When you have this clear foundation. The third point that I want to make is the Sauce Gardner trade. And this is really what puts the nail in the coffin, which is that they don't have a first round pick for 2026 and 2027. The reason why this trade, the positive outlook on this trade is the idea that while they might have overpaid for a cornerback just generally, even if it's one of the best cornerbacks within the NFL, the reason you do that is because you're a team that has an offensive upside to win you a Super Bowl. And if you can just patch up this defense to be good enough that then you can win a Super Bowl, right? Like, obviously 2 first round picks is worth a Super Bowl. This totally ruins that. Like, I'm pretty much out on the Colts making the playoffs this year, and I have no idea what the Colts are going to look like offensively with Daniel Jones as the quarterback for the future after a torn Achilles, after the contract. And even if he didn't get hurt, we saw the numbers under pressure and how that doesn't really seem sustainable. So what you saw was a team that basically gave up their future for the next 2 years. That wasn't in. People think like, oh, that's an investment in Sauce Gardner. Really, that's an investment in Daniel Jones.
100%. And here's the thing: there's
what makes this.
Was there any person ever happier to see a man's Achilles get torn than Aaron Glenn?
Maybe not.
Because basically just ensures that the Colts, like, instead of that draft pick being like bottom 5 with the Colts record, like, he's now going to have 2 years, or at least this year, where it's like it's probably going to end up being at least a top 20 pick, if not closer to like 17, 18, 19, depending on how the rest of the season goes for the Colts. It's not.
Well, right now, they're the 8th.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like going to, depending on how this plays out, the Colts have monumentally screwed themselves here.
Yeah, and it's really sad to see. You know, I was talking about the Colts as contenders early on in the season, which I don't regret because I think the way that they were playing proves that to be the case. Listen to their last 4 games: Seattle, San Francisco, Jacksonville, Houston. They could easily lose all 4 of those games.
Easily, 100%.
If they lose all 4 of those games and go 8-9, if we're looking at Tankathon right now, those teams are picking anywhere from like 11 to like 14. Like, yeah, that just adds fuel to the fire of this is a really, really bad quarterback situation all of a sudden. And what makes it worse, and this is kind of where your point of like perspective and the vibes of the team, the fact of the matter is that they have these offensive pieces. They have Jonathan Taylor. They have the great offensive line. They have weirdly, like, you know, it's not the type of wide receiver core that like sticks out necessarily, but it's incredibly complimentary when you think about Josh Downs and what he does, and Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman and what he does. And then obviously Tyler Warren on a rookie contract. Like, they have a Super Bowl caliber offense with the right quarterback. And yet
why
they don't really have a path to get it unless Daniel Jones makes a miraculous recovery and plays better than he was.
The reason why I don't, because I'll go ahead and say I don't have them on my list, although you're making a very compelling argument, is purely because of the fact that you just said, and as compared to the Vikings, where they've invested blue chip draft capital into a rookie contract quarterback, the Colts don't have that. They have more flexibility in the sense of like investment in the quarterback position. The argument you're making, which is a good argument, is that because they've invested so much around the position, it accentuates how bad that situation looks.
Yeah, because basically what my case is that Daniel Jones, when healthy, is not a Super Bowl winning quarterback based on the sample size that we've seen. And then you add on to the fact that he's injured, it creates a situation where if you're in a front office, chances are you've seen enough good quarterback play to say, we're going to sign him and we're going to make him, 2-3 year deal. Then
that'd be a terrible idea.
It'd be a terrible contract, right? Like, it would just be terrible because you're basically banking on the fact that Daniel Jones, injured, can play at the same level as he did early in the season. Not only is that unlikely, but even if he did, in order for this to be a Super Bowl winning team, he'd have to play better. And so that's why I'm saying they don't have a chance at winning the Super Bowl realistically, and they don't have their 2 first-round picks for the next 2 years.
If they gave him a contract, it would be at least 3 years of 130, giving him $43 million a year, at least.
Probably. Yeah. No, absolutely. So yeah, it creates a situation where it's like, and this is kind of where it's like why they made my list is because I look at the fact that they have this offense around the quarterback as a negative when they don't have a path to get a good one.
That's 100% fair. I respect that logic.
In terms of fixing them, the first thing is don't sign Daniel Jones. Right? And then it's, I wanted to frame this video like, ooh, how do you fix it? It's hard for me to say that there's a way to fix it other than Anthony Richardson resurgence. Like, he is still like 23. Like, maybe he can pop off.
My goodness.
Or B, just like waiting out.
How far they have fallen in the course of like 48 hours.
Literally so ridiculous. Like, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I'm kind of convincing myself they should be higher on my list, or I guess lower.
Yeah.
How do you fix it?
I don't know. Maybe
I'm
that's
sorry.
why I didn't put them on my list. I was like, I don't want to have to be forced to reckon with that.
I couldn't figure it out. I think, again, it really just, and what really sucks, the icing on the cake is that this quarterback market sucks this offseason. It's like, I was like Googling it and it was like Russell Wilson.
I mean, trade for Joe Burrow?
Market. I'd be a Colts fan. I would immediately switch.
Well, I think we've beat on the Colts enough.
Poor guys.
I'll move on to
What's
my
your next?
number 3. Adam, I have the Arizona Cardinals as my third worst quarterback situation in the NFL. The Kyler Murray plug should be pulled and a reset is needed. They will have top 10 draft capital, although their cap space is surprisingly average given how below average that roster is. They actually don't have, I went into this just assuming it's like, oh, the Cardinals probably have like somewhere between like the 8th to 12th best cap space. No, it's like, depending on what moves they make, somewhere between like 18th to 22nd. So it's not atrocious, but it's not great. There is enough here to keep them out of the bottom 2, mainly just the fact that I like the young defense and I have some weapons on that offense that give me confidence if they reset and rebuild. If they don't commit to a rebuild, if they keep Kyler Murray, this jumps up potentially to my number 1 spot. Just be out of like personal disgust for front office mismanagement. And so Kyler Murray, just to speak on him, we're so far removed from it even seeming like a thing that could work, kind of.
Yeah.
And this is a big switch up for me because I've been someone who's generally tried to support Kyler Murray, but this season was the nail in the coffin. I saw it. It didn't work. Add on injuries, add on all of the off-field locker room stuff, all of that. It's like you bite the bullet. Yeah, you gave him the contract. It sucks. Sunk cost fallacy. Don't fall for it, Cardinals. You need to move on, whether that's cutting him or finding a trade package where you're probably getting relatively little, but at least it may help you get more money off of the books than a dead money situation by cutting him. I don't know exactly the direct route that is best for fixing it. I just know that it has to start with a rebuild.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you. So the Cardinals, for me, they didn't make my list. And there's really two reasons why. The first one is because I think that the way that they've handled Kyler Murray in basically benching, like I know that he's been injured, but it feels more like it's kind of like they're benching him. To me, paints a clear picture into what their plan is with him in the future. The other thing, and the biggest thing compared to a lot of these teams, is that he's a tradable asset.
He's a tradable asset. Here's what I'll say, and this is not me disagreeing with you. This is more so kind of proving our difference in philosophy here. As you can tell, I'm not punishing teams somewhat who are in the midst of a rebuild. I will punish teams who haven't started yet. Even if all signs are pointing to the fact that I think they will, the fact that they are in this point right now and haven't technically begun it yet, I have to count that against them in the way I'm judging it.
No, I'm with you there. No, I don't think this is a bad. The truth is that like when we're picking these top 5, it's a hard to make.
Oh, it's
the
a
cut.
hard call. Yeah.
Like the Cardinals were close. They were close. It just, they didn't make my list, but
That's fair. You got other teams that you want to rail against.
yeah, this is where I have they're in my category listing. They're somewhere between what the hell is even that and good ceiling, terrible floor.
Okay. Yeah, I would lean more towards what the hell even is that, even though
Right.
going into the season, I would have said the good ceiling, terrible floor.
No, absolutely. But if you're done, we can move on to my number 3 on this list.
Go right
The Miami
ahead.
Dolphins.
Oh, baby.
Oh, yeah. First point here. Tua is just not that guy.
No, he's not that guy.
Completion percentage has dropped from last year to this year from 72% to 66%. Yards per attempt has dropped by almost a yard. Interceptions have doubled despite fewer attempts. Passing yards per game has dropped pretty significantly. He's struggled heavily on third downs. His performance under pressure, also pretty bad. So again, I'm looking at a lot of the same things when I'm looking at quarterback, right? Like how do they perform overall? How do they perform in high leverage situations? How do they perform under pressure? And then their EPA. In 2024, he actually had a plus 85 EPA. In 2025, he has a negative 1.7 EPA and a negative 0.004 EPA per dropback. His success percentage is also just 45%. In the red zone, also not particularly spectacular. The point is that he is, and again, like I said before, the Dolphins are clearly in that high ceiling, or no, good ceiling, terrible floor, where you have this quarterback that in one season can be good, right? And in the right context with the right situation around them can be good enough specifically to earn a second contract. And here's the problem with contracts within the NFL from a team perspective. It's all based on the market. The other problem, the market is really small. What I mean by that is, as soon as a guy like Joe Burrow gets a crap ton of money in his second contract, it resets the quarterback market for second contracts as a whole. And while it's not like Tua is making as much money, it still has to be pretty close if you're going to sign a guy for a second contract. Speaking of which, let's look at the contract, right? Tua Tagovailoa, when he signed for a 4-year, $212 million contract with a $42 million signing bonus and $167 million totally guaranteed. If they decided to release him or trade him in 2025, the dead cap hit would be $137 million. It would be $99 million in 2026. It would be $31 million in 2027, $18 million in 2028. Basically, what that tells me is that they kind of have to keep him at least through 2026. And even in 2027, $31 million in dead cap space is still an insane amount of money. So that's the first thing. Basically, they are the poster child for this category of they signed their quarterback to a second deal. He is clearly not the guy. And his ceiling is just like being okay as long as the pieces around him are okay, right? And you saw that when they went to the playoffs and then immediately got mollywopped by the Chiefs when it was cold outside. Like that's it. Like, yeah, they beat the bad teams, they lost to the good teams, they made it to the playoffs and immediately lost. And that was at the height of Tyreek Hill. That was when Jalen Waddle was balling. Their run game was unstoppable. They had all those incredibly fast guys. Their defense was good. And yet that is the ceiling of a Tua Tagovailoa team. And he's being paid like a top-end quarterback within the NFL. Because of that contract, it also means that they don't have a tradable asset. He can't be traded. And even if he was traded, that dead cap space would still affect their overall cap space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's just no good draft pick. There's no one in the works. They don't have a way of moving off of him other than just time. And, I haven't even mentioned the injuries.
Adam, this is why the Miami Dolphins are my second worst situation in the league.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and add on to what you were saying, just as them being my number 2. Let's look at some things. Cutting Tyreek Hill would free up some money, but it also comes with significant dead cap hits for 2026 and 2027. So those cap situations still look rough, even if you cut away some things to try and improve the situation. They also messed around and won at least 6 games this season and probably will win at least one more. Best case scenario for them, which would be losing out, they're probably the 10th pick. They could drop easily to the 15th pick just by winning one more game. There's a world in which it's just unsolvable, like you said, and you did a good job painting that picture. Like, you can't really cut him. You can't really trade him. They clearly don't want to fire their head coach, despite the fact that they fired their GM. They can't really keep Tyreek Hill because his leg is 90 degrees in the opposite direction, but also by cutting him, you don't really do anything in the short term for your immediate short-term problem at quarterback. There's really nothing for you to do other than hope and pray that a meteorite hits the city of Miami and they are given provisional draft picks and literally start the franchise over again.
Maybe they have like an insurance policy in that scenario.
That's it. That's the fixability of the Miami Dolphins.
Meteorite hitting the city of Miami. No, the way that they fix this, and the biggest thing too, is not just about the draft pick, but like, is Quinn Ewers the guy? Like,
no.
What do they do?
Is Quinn Ewers? We've got him waiting in the wings.
So basically, like, they have no choice but to stick with Tua. So the way to fix this,
and we also should mention the fact that they're being forced to stick with a quarterback that's one football play away from drinking through a straw for the rest of his life.
Whoa, true.
I mean, like, that's the reality. They're
true.
Forced to play a man at quarterback who's not only not good, but they will actively, like, look like NFL villains when he inevitably gets concussed again. And we have this, like,
the whole discourse starts over.
Lose situation for Miami.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, actually, that is you're so
that
right.
is by far the best way out. Tua retires this offseason.
I like Tua too.
I do too. I'm really
shout out to Tua.
I'm just keeping it real in terms of practically how you fix it. That is objectively in a 3-year plan the best way if Tua retires this offseason.
Yeah. And that leads to my number 2 team, the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh,
which
baby.
Might be.
You went there.
Yeah, I did. So again, context. Let me look. Where did I put them in my little category system? They were in the you have the guy, but don't know if he's the guy. And the reason why I picked them is because I think that guy is the least promising of all the guys in that category.
Even more so than
let me get
JJ
into
McCarthy?
He's not in that. They're not in that
Oh,
category. The
they're not in
Vikings are
that
in the what the
category.
hell is even that category.
Okay. Okay.
Penix was just kind of not good this year. He had a 60% completion percentage, took 13 sacks. Again, his performance under pressure was like abysmal of all the quarterbacks that I've talked about. 37% completion percentage when pressured. Really bad. 0 touchdowns when under pressure. And overall, the completion percentage is what worries you. On third down, he wasn't particularly inspiring. Yeah, just not good. And the biggest thing really was his red zone efficiency. That was something that we talked about early in the season that hasn't really fixed itself. Just 4.94 total EPA, a 44.8% success percentage. He's just not played well when you look at the stats, and even just like looking at him as a whole, you haven't really played well. But is that enough to make them the number 2 spot? No, it's not, because the next point is his injury history. Penix is out for 9 months because of an ACL sprain. And this isn't the first time. 18, when he was playing for Indiana, he tore his ACL in his right knee, entered his season, which ended his season. In 2019, he fractured his clavicle and sprained his AC joint in his right shoulder and ended the season. In 2020 for Indiana, he tore his ACL again in his right knee. In 2021 in Indiana, he had again an AC joint sprain in his left throwing shoulder, which ended the season. And in 2025, a bone bruise in his left knee, which followed by a partially torn ACL, requiring a third ACL reconstruction, season-ending injury.
So what you're
This is
telling
not a
me is that he's
guy-
got a lot of similarities with Joe Burrow.
Even worse. It's even worse, Jonathan.
I know.
But here's the difference, and this is why it's worse. Joe Burrow has randomly torn different ligaments within his body.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, it's his right knee and both his shoulders. His right knee has been decimated.
Yeah, it's like that scene in what is it? The Dark Knight Returns, where Bruce Wayne is visiting the doctor trying to get a checkup to make him feel better about returning to being Batman, and the doctor walks in and he's like, well, it's not the worst cartilage I've ever seen in a knee. And he's like, well, that's good. That's because there's no cartilage in your knee.
Exactly. Like, it's just gone. But is that enough to make this the second worst quarterback situation in the NFL? No, it's not. Because there's one piece that's missing. The Kirk Cousins contract,
Oh my God.
which really puts this over the edge. At the age of 36, Kirk Cousins signed a 4-year, $180 million contract. What
Why?
is that?
What even is
What
that?
on earth is going on? Immediately torn his Achilles. He's playing terribly right now as the starter because, like I said, Michael Penix is out. Like, this is absolute malpractice. And it's funny because over the last 2 years, and I'm about to get into this, over the last 2 drafts, we've seen this experiment, right? Like the Falcons, they're almost like the Rams, where they're like inventing, new trendy things that maybe it works.
But worse.
The first one, yeah. The problem is that with the Rams, they invent new trendy things that work out and like change how the league perceives things. With the Falcons, they're just inventing new ways to mess up and like ruin their future.
Really, NFL
first
teams
one-
they probably love the Falcons because they're just the
Yes.
experiment.
Do
Like,
the exact
okay,
opposite.
so we don't do that.
Right. So they needed a quarterback. What did they say? We're going to overinvest in it. They signed Kirk Cousins, right, to this crazy contract in the offseason and then messed around and picked Michael Penix, 9 overall?
Yep.
So that was the first thing. And it turns out that both of those moves seem to not be the move. And then to really add to it, they realized, wait a minute, we also have an issue with pass rush. And then they traded their first overall pick for next year in order to get James Pierce Jr. Now, listen, James Pierce Jr. has actually played really well. So there, on one hand, it's the situation where it's like, okay, well, this is fine because, if James Pierce Jr. is my first round pick for 2026, like overall, that's okay. But the problem is that right now they're doing a great job tanking. Okay, like if there's one thing that I can say positively, it's the fact that they have done a great job tanking. They are now 4-9 with the 9th overall pick. The problem is that pick is going to the Rams.
Sean
And so you
McVay.
have
Oh
this
my goodness.
situation. Exactly. You're in QB purgatory, is my final note, where it's like, what do you even do? And like, honestly, the more I'm thinking about it, maybe I should have put like the Dolphins or even maybe the Colts, because I really convinced myself above them. But I still feel good about putting them at number 2 because Michael Penix, of all the quarterbacks in that draft, maybe other than JJ McCarthy, he looks like the guy who, and like, that's not a, like, he's also kind of old, right? Like,
Oh
he's
yeah,
not just
played
right,
6
like
years in college.
in college, because of all the freaking injuries, he was able to maintain his eligibility. He played a full career, never playing a full season at Indiana before he transferred to Washington. It's just one of those situations where it's like you're in cap space hell because of a quarterback that you're not even like that's clearly not the future. And on top of that, your rookie quarterback or young quarterback that you picked early in the draft is also not particularly working out. Like, is there a world where after his like 6th season ending injury that Michael Penix gets better? Like, that's the question for the Dolphin or for the Falcons front office. Like, after literally 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, excuse me, his 5th season ending
No.
injury, that he gets better.
I mean, here's the picture I'll paint, and really, this was so close. This easily could have ended up on my list. It's technically not, but you are selling me on it in many ways. The two things are, I like this situation with the weaponry and the young defense enough to where it's like they could just throw a guy in there and it probably works and isn't terrible.
Yeah.
The second thing is that even though it's stupid that they burned the Kirk Cousins money, it's not
the worst.
that long term of an investment. It's like you burned money, but it's a controlled fire. Like, it basically goes through next season and then you can basically dump it. You're done. And you bite
Fortunately, the fortunate thing with this contract is that it was $100 million or $180 million contract. $100 million was guaranteed, which ironically creates a situation where, you know, we're in the 2025 season. After this, if they were to cut him or trade him, the dead cap space would only be 35 million next year and then 12 million the year after that.
Exactly.
Which
So
35 million is obviously a lot,
but it sucks
it's like,
for one season.
Right. Like, and you're right. Like, they do have the infrastructure around them. And I think that the way you fix this one is by firing Raheem Morris. And then like, can you find, you know, a Liam Cohen, a Ben Johnson, and maybe not that high of a standard, but like, can you replace him with a good offensive minded head coach that can come in and, you know, use all these pieces, you know, a top end running back within the NFL, a top end wide receiver within the NFL. You know, ironically, while this is happening, Kyle Pitts is having the best season of his career. Like, can you
have
find
this guy named Bijan Robinson?
Yeah, exactly. Fortunately for them, the quarterback doesn't have to be the focal point of their offense. But again, like, you know, look at the Colts. Like, the Colts have Jonathan Taylor, who's, you know, incredible, probably having the best running back season in the NFL right now. And yet the quarterback position is important and it sets your ceiling.
100%. What I'll say is you probably fire Raheem Morris and you cut Kirk Cousins. You bite the bullet for one season, but at the end of the day, when you're looking to 2027, you're going to come out unscathed enough to where that's why they didn't make it high on my list. But from the perspective you frame it, there's also a way to see it as truly terrible.
Yes.
So,
but we can move on. Who's your number one team? Tell me, what, in your opinion, what is the worst quarterback situation in the NFL?
I'm going to look into the camera and speak directly to the fans of this team. The worst quarterback situation in the NFL is the Tennessee Titans. You suck.
Wow.
You don't have a head coach. Your roster is at best bottom 6 in the league. And you just spent a number 1 overall pick on a quarterback who, let's be honest, has shown next to nothing. But at least all 70 of the fans that team has can look forward to a new stadium in 2027.
Whoa!
The Tennessee Titans are officially... I'm making the move, Adam. Tyler Shuck for the Saints has won me over. I no longer have irrational hatred for the Saints. I'm moving my irrational hatred team to the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
You did the worst thing. And here's the problem. I don't even blame you because it's what you have to do. But you were the unfortunate soul that it happens every 5 to 6 years in the NFL, which is everything was bleak and abysmal, and you had the number 1 overall pick, and you happened to spin the wheel on one of the worst draft classes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what happened. Everything went wrong, and it only got worse. Maybe it's too soon to call it on Cam Ward, but that is what I'm saying here. I don't see it. I don't see the vision for this prototype of quarterback working out, especially with the state of this roster and the organization manning it. Cam Ward in another alternative universe, does he have enough talent to where if he had been picked by a team that was picking 12th overall, he could have panned out? Sure. But not 2025, 2026 Tennessee Titans. And because of that, because you picked him number 1 overall, he will be your starting quarterback for at least the next 2 seasons after this. There's no way out of it in the near future. You're in the middle of a rebuild that is doomed from the start. And for that reason, by no fault of your own necessarily, you are the worst quarterback situation in the NFL.
Yeah, I'll say this. The first thing I'm going to say is actually to add fuel to the fire. It's funny because they didn't make my list. And the reason why, so like I said, they fell into the nothing but the, or sorry, the you have a guy, but you don't know if he is the guy category. I'm giving Cam Ward the benefit of the doubt when it comes to what I've seen this year. I think that the situation around him is just so terrible that the little signs of life, like this is similar to the Caleb Williams situation from last year, where it's like, I see enough signs of life from him particularly that like, I'm not completely given up on him. That being said, I think that there is something to be said about the Titans organization and the absolute terrible decisions that they've made. First off, and it really starts with Mike Vrabel. The reason why Mike Vrabel was fired was because he consistently disagreed with the front office and the direction that the team would be going. The best example that I can think of off the top of my head was the trading of A.J. Brown to the Eagles. That was something that Mike Vrabel adamantly was against, and something that the front office said, well, screw you, we're doing it anyway. And basically it created this situation where the front office basically made all of the wrong decisions in the spite of what Vrabel was saying, which inevitably led to Vrabel being fired. They then, and listen, Brian Callahan was he was a coach of the Bengals. He was our offensive coordinator. The problem is when you are the offensive coordinator for a team that has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow, it is hard to understand if your offensive success is because you have probably the best weaponry within the NFL, especially at that time, or is it because you're some sort of offensive genius? And Brian Callahan was, let me tell you, I can be the first to tell you, he was not doing anything particularly special. In fact, I guarantee he was similar to a Zach Taylor hire, which is, we're going to hire the guy who is cheap. And so the reason I'm saying that is to say that why I like them on this list is because it's not just about Cam Ward. It's about the organization and the consistent failures. And now Mike Vrabel is on pace to win the AFC, something he did for your team. And you look like a bunch of idiots with pie on your face from the front office's perspective. Again, the reason I didn't put them on my list is because I basically decided that, like, listen, if you like I think that Cam Ward can be the guy. They have high draft picks, and they also have a lot of flexibility because there's a good chance that they get the number 1 overall pick. Obviously beating the Browns didn't help that, but if they can get the number 1 overall pick, then they have the ability to they have the ability and flexibility to be able to create a situation where their draft picks go from good to great, right? Where they're able to trade down, still get a really good piece, and all of those things. But that being said, you're right. Like the Titans have totally mismanaged everything basically since they won the AFC.
Yeah, and what I'll say is that that's part of my point with the cap space, and the draft capital is actually in a pretty good spot, and I still have them at my worst overall because that's how poorly I think of the situation that they're actively dealing with. Like,
Yeah.
and the problem is that let me just, and I get it, you're being kind, and it is your opinion. I have the different opinion of Cam Ward, which means that whatever investments they make from the good capital is going to a lost cause from the start. And so that's what, like, my putting them at the number one overall worst is because I think, like I said, it's doomed from the beginning. And so even the bright spots, actually, when we look back 5 years from now, will turn into negatives for them.
Right, because I think you put it perfectly. If Cam Ward ends up not being a franchise quarterback, then you're right. Then they are taking a good situation when it comes to draft and cap space and investing it in a bad cause. And that is definitely a reason to put them number one on your list. I still have hope for Cam Ward. I see the vision. It might be faulty, but I'm not selling my stock yet.
Okay.
With that, I think we can put a button in that. And, it's funny because your reasoning for why you have the Titans last, very similar to my worst team, and it's funny too, because both of ours, and I kind of had a feeling our list would be pretty different. Both of our number one worst QB situations in the NFL aren't on each other's list.
I've noticed that, and I really appreciate that.
At number one, I have the Cleveland Browns.
You have
To start off, I went to Google Gemini because I thought this would be funny. And I said, do some research and create a 1-minute paper, a synopsis, if you will, about the Cleveland Browns' history at the quarterback position. The paper is titled The Quarterback Graveyard, The Cleveland Browns, by Google Gemini. The Cleveland Browns' quarterback history since their 1999 return is less of a football story and more of a horror show carousel. It is a testament to instability and mind-boggling failure. Since 1999, the Browns have had an absolutely staggering 42 different players start at least one game at quarterback, a figure far higher than any other NFL franchise. The instability is total. In 23 out of 26 seasons since the team's return, the Browns have had to use at least 2 different starting quarterbacks. They have achieved the sacred trust of a single starter for an entire season in a meager 3 seasons total. Think about this truly ridiculous truth. From 1999 expansion until late in the 2025 season, there was an unprecedented streak where 17 consecutive Browns quarterbacks making their first career NFL start for the team all lost. The loss column grew so long, it was the equivalent of a full winless season. The draft record is equally grim. The Browns have drafted 5 first-round quarterbacks since 1999, and their combined regular season starting record is a dismal 61 wins and 97 losses. While Baker Mayfield did manage to secure a single playoff victory, the overall investment is a deep hole. And the draft mismanagement is spectacular. The team drafted a quarterback with the 22nd overall pick 3 times in 7 years. And those 3 combined for just 10 wins. They used a first-round pick on Brandon Weeden, making him the oldest first-round pick in NFL history at age 28. But it gets even more ridiculous when you look at individual rock-bottom performances. Quarterback Bruce Grodkowski once started a game and completed 5 of 16 passes for a measly 18 yards and 2 interceptions, resulting in a nearly impossible-to-achieve passer rating. For a full season, Deshaun Kaiser went a miserable 0-15 as a starter in 2017. A minimum attempts qualifier, Spurgeon boasts a barely believable career passer rating of 39.5 with the team. This is unbelievable. Continuous quarterback carousel has been the primary factor in the franchise's instability to achieve sustained success, making the QB spot the true sorrow of the Browns. You want to know something crazy about that? It didn't even include the Deshaun Watson trade. All of that. And it didn't mention the worst the worst trade in NFL history. So here's a little history lesson, modern history, a recent contract. He signed a 5-year, $23 million contract. $230 million of that was guaranteed. I don't know if you noticed, but the contract was $230 million. They guaranteed all of it. They guaranteed all of it to the man who had over 20 cases against him. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Not only that, listen to this. If he was to be released in 2025, it would incur a dead cap of $167 million. If he was released in 2026, it would incur a dead cap of $131 million. And if he was released in 2027, which is the final year of his contract, the dead cap would be $50 million. And that's not even including all the random stuff that happens, post June 1st, pre-June 1st. I'm not even going to get into that. I want to point out something. I brought up 3 different contracts. I brought up this one, the Tua one, and the Kirk Cousins ones in this video. The highest dead cap, if they were going to be released, was $86 million. If they released Deshaun Watson, it's a $131 million contract hit. I didn't do this research. But how many quarterbacks are making more than $131 million in their total contract? Over a 4-year period. And that's the dead cap if they release him. So my point being, the reason why the Browns have the worst quarterback situation in the NFL is because they always have the worst quarterback situation in the NFL. Because since 1999, they have never started, only 3 times in 26 seasons has a starting quarterback started 1 year and then started the next year. What? It's insane.
If you want me to be honest, Adam, the reason that the Browns aren't even on my list is because they transcend the list. They are the eternal worst. And so I can't really put them on here because, let's be honest, Adam, you're calling a spade. And that's what it is.
I'm not doing anything special here.
No. And it's important. It's work that needs to be done to remind the people and to remind Browns fans out there that you are cursed and you deserve it.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I haven't even gotten to the rookies, right? The whole Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, that whole...
Overall... Dylan Gabriel has a 59% completion percentage this year. Shedeur Sanders just had a really good game, right? True, it is. Shedeur Sanders just had a really good game. But even with that good game, he has a 52.4% completion percentage.
Oh my goodness.
5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 8 sacks. 8 sacks. Again, I'll say it again, 8 sacks. Under pressure, Shedeur Sanders has a 36% completion percentage. He's thrown 2 interceptions in that time frame. Dylan Gabriel's completion percentage is higher when under pressure simply because Dylan Gabriel didn't do anything. He checked downs and that was it, and he handed off the ball. Let's look at their efficiency. Dylan Gabriel's total EPA was -42. Shedeur Sanders, -18. The only reason it's -18 is just because he hasn't played as much. Third down performances. Gabriel, 53%. Sanders, 45% completion percentage. Red zone efficiency is actually pretty good for Sanders after this next game. And I know it's a small sample size, and I'm not saying that, I've been consistent when it comes to Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. I think Dylan Gabriel is bad. Shedeur Sanders, I think, has a higher potential, but I don't, I think it's more likely than not that he's going to be a Jacoby Brissett in this league. The point that I'm making, though, is that they don't have the cap. They have the draft pick. In fact, they have 2 first-round picks this year because of the trade. last year with the Jaguars. It doesn't matter.
It really
Let's
doesn't.
just, you know, if you're a Fernando Mendoza guy, you got to be praying that he isn't drafted by the Browns, because that's it. That's the indictment of his career.
Browns,
And
you already drafted 2 quarterbacks in last year's draft. Spend both of your first-round picks on a quarterback. Just do it. Just for our pure entertainment, Cleveland, please do it. I actually want you to draft 2 quarterbacks with your first-round picks and have a quarterback battle between Drew Allers and Mendoza and Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. And you know what? We can bring in a Kenny Pickett, and hell, why don't we sign Kirk Cousins? Why don't we trade for him? And why don't we actually build a roster entirely of quarterbacks? 53 quarterbacks.
Just quarterbacks.
All on one roster. Surely one of them will work out.
My final notes, there's literally no chance, there's no hope, because they are the Cleveland Browns. And with that, we'll see you guys later.
Thank you. Good night.
With that, peace out. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, subscribe. We're doing videos like this all the time. If you have any ideas for videos that you want to do, that you think would be cool, any topics, anything like that.
And if you
Put it in
don't
the
have any
comments, let us
ideas,
know.
also tell us. That way we can make fun of you for being unimaginative.
Exactly. All right, guys. Peace.